I'm Wendy Capewell, an experienced counsellor and psychotherapist. I work with so many people who feel that they're the only ones struggling with the issues that they share with me. Possibly, like many of you, they feel so alone. And so the aim of this podcast is to talk to guests who have their own stories to share, their experience of the struggles that they've been through, or maybe they're continuing to live with, offering their insights as well as their inspiring journey. So let me introduce my guest. I've got a lovely lady with me today. She's going to talk about dating, and that is one of those tricky subjects that I think so many people struggle with. And her name is Gabby Valdes, and she is surprisingly a dating coach. So, Gabby, introduce yourself to everybody because I'm sure everyone wants to know more about you and what you do.
Yeah, thank you for having me. First of all, Wendy, it's so good to be here. So, I am a dating coach. I help singles that are looking for love finally find their person. I've helped dozens of singles find their someone special to share their life with. Do you want me to go into the nitty gritty or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that so many people are looking for love. Everyone's looking for someone to love and someone to love them. And we're in a world full of couples. And I think that just makes it even more difficult for people when they feel that they can't find the right person. Yeah, what is it that gets in the way?
Yeah, well, I can relate to this so personally. This is the reason why I became a dating coach. I struggled for decades. I felt honestly embarrassed because a lot of my friends had found their person or were getting engaged or were getting married. And through the years, I kept on either bringing a new person and feeling embarrassed about that. Like, oh, I'm always that single friend that's bringing a new person around into the group, or I was single. And then oftentimes I would have really challenging dating stories. Sometimes it was entertaining and fun, and other times it was just really disappointing and really disheartening, to be completely honest. And so the reason why I got into dating coaching was because I had to, well, one, I felt like the current dating culture, which is very much like, let's play it cool and let's see where things go, but more in an apathetic kind of way of like, I don't really care. I'm going to pretend I don't care. Even though I am interested, I'm just going to act like I don't care at all about this person or not get too attached too easily. And that type of culture didn't really resonate with me. Not only did it not resonate, but it also caused a lot of anxiety and pain and heartbreak. And I also noticed that I was chasing unavailable types, like people that wouldn't commit, didn't want to be seen together, or didn't want to label things. And so after years and years of dating that way, I figured there had to be another way of dating. There had to be another way of dating that also yielded a particular result. And at that point, I had a 3-month-long relationship where it was really short but intense. And after going through that relationship, mind you, I had gone through multiple situationship after situationship where it had been at least like a year or two, almost 2 years of my life had stacked up, going after short but intense connections, one after the other. And then at that point, after my ex, I had just really struggled with this like devastating heartbreak to the point where I was like, I don't want this to happen to me anymore. Not necessarily rejection, but more so like I want to date with more confidence and clarity and a deep understanding for myself. And I want to find my person. So from there, being able to uncover some of the beliefs that I had about myself, right? This belief that I wasn't worthy of love, or if anyone was actually genuinely enthusiastic about me, something was wrong with them because I didn't believe I was worthy of love. So I would often sabotage, right? Like if someone was available, I would think, oh, that's just too much. They're coming on too strong. They're too available. But then I would chase after people that wouldn't give me the time of day or were really interested in the beginning and then would pull away and change suddenly. So really was about uncovering this belief system that I had that then really just changed the way that I showed up in dating. I started to realize courage and bravery was really important to me. So that meant telling someone that I was interested, or saying, hey, like, I want to go out on a date. Like, this went really well. Let's go on a second date. Also doing some really challenging things, like telling people, oh, I don't think that we're a good fit to each other, actually in person, which was really scary, but like telling people, hey, I just don't think that we're the best fit. And people really found that honesty really refreshing. So the more that I was honest with myself, the more that I was honest with other people, I started becoming even more discerning with who I went on second dates with. I set better boundaries around dates and sex and myself. And then 6 months later, I found the love of my life, and we've been engaged for almost 2 years now, and we're gonna get married. Planning a wedding is really challenging during the pandemic, but yeah, it really just starts with the mindset, because I share this a lot with my community. I could teach you the skills around dating and intimacy and building a long-term relationship, but you're not going to get that really deep and intimate and vulnerable connection that you've been longing for if we don't really sit and shift your belief system.
Yeah, and I really get that. I think there's something very valid about being that honest and open, and yes, just going for the right person and our belief system. But I'm going to look at the other side of it, because when I was younger and dating, I was the opposite. I was so desperate to be in a relationship, to find the person. I tried too hard. And therefore, I wasn't myself. I wasn't discerning. I didn't trust myself. And I would put up with a load of shit. I'm going to say basically it was because I just was desperate. I actually married somebody because I believed I wasn't good enough to be with anybody, that they would accept me, and therefore, well, at least they'll accept me for who I am. It was the worst thing I ever did in my life. So how do you figure that one out?
Yes, thank you for sharing. And I can certainly relate. I had a 3-year-long relationship that was on track to get married. And I felt that same sense of desperation, because before I had met him, I had been in a string of situationships and flings. So when I found someone that was going to commit to me, I was like, it doesn't get any better than this. This is as good as it's going to get. I lost myself in that relationship. I didn't trust my gut or my instincts or my intuition. And it really was this enmeshed relationship where I felt like I couldn't be alone. And then also he couldn't do anything without me. And to that, I say it does come down. I mean, there's so many things to this. Like, we are really complex human beings. So I don't want to distill this into like a one bite-sized answer. No. But the thing that really comes up to mind is that belief system, right? Like, believing that, or I'll speak for myself. So I believe that I wasn't worthy of a healthy relationship. And I also felt that I was really afraid to be alone. And so in a sense, I was in survival. I was really trying to make this relationship work at all costs. And it also makes sense because humans are wired for connection. We long for intimacy and closeness. Like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be close to another human, whether it is friendship or mentorship or romantic partnership. So there's nothing wrong with that. I didn't know that at the time. So I definitely shamed myself for wanting that, which then also caused me to shut down or pull away. Like, I wasn't also emotionally available myself in many ways. But so being in survival, I was like, I need to basically fear kind of kicks in, right? Because when you're surviving, you're not really seeing maybe the bird's eye view or the long term effects or consequences of things or what your desires are, because you're so focused in on how do I get this person to like me? How do I get this to work? And in a sense, you also kind of lose yourself because you're not checking in with yourself and asking yourself, do I feel safe with this person? Are we able to repair any ruptures or conflicts that happen? Do I like who I am in this relationship? How are we growing, right? Like asking ourselves these really fundamental questions. But because we are in survival mode and fear is kicking in, it's a lot of this like scarcity mindset, all or nothing thinking. I either have this or I don't. I'm either with this person or I'm alone forever, right? Like it's really much survival. And so a lot of the work that I do with clients is getting to that mindset of like, well, what is it that you actually want at your core? Who are you? What gifts, what values do you bring into relationships? Not necessarily like, how can I change myself or am I worthy? Those are not the questions, because you are inherently worthy of love, connection, and belonging. And it's about actually believing that, because when we start to believe that you're worthy of these things, inch by inch, that's when you can start practicing receiving kindness and intimacy, because that's really vulnerable to be able to receive someone's enthusiasm, their commitment, their ability to think and be thoughtful about you and your well-being. That's really vulnerable. So it really is about uncovering your beliefs, noticing when fear or scarcity mindset is present, and not necessarily trying to replace it with positive thinking or abundance thinking. It's more so understanding who you are, getting really clear on what your emotions are trying to tell you, not trying to avoid your emotions. And then from that place, that's when the abundance mindset comes in. That's when you start to actually believe that instead of forcing positive thinking.
Yeah. And I could so identify with what you were saying when it was that survival mode. It was that I'm desperate. And I think that was, it just gets played out. And then, as you said, I totally identified with the fact that I lost myself. I didn't know who I was, and I would accept unacceptable behavior at any cost. And I was always trying to do the right thing so I would, so he would approve of it. It would be okay. And it got me into one heck of a mess. And I would say that for me at that point, I was the loneliest person on the earth. So, yeah, that desperation didn't play well for me. And I totally get what you're saying. So thank you for sharing all of that, because I know it now, but it was at that point I didn't. And I was just so desperate, but also desperately unhappy. And it is, you're right. I deserve to be loved. I think that is a given. I think that's lovely, because we forget that we are worthy. I think that so often happens with people.
Yeah. And I can definitely relate to feeling like disconnected or really lonely. And I wish I could share this visual. And I got this from psychotherapist Ken Page, who's also a dating coach, but he talks about the zones of intimacy. So if you imagine three orbs and they're overlaid on top of each other. So there's the internal core, which is like your zone of genius, your zone, your gift zone. So thinking about it this way is it's your essence. It's the light and the warmth that you bring into your life and into your relationships. And then the outer layer of that is the zone of protection. So really protecting our gifts. So if you've been heartbroken, or if you felt like someone has betrayed you, you don't trust a lot of people, you kind of tend to live in this zone of protection because you do want to protect your gifts. So maybe you were really enthusiastic about someone, but then you got rejected, or you really did open up and were vulnerable to someone and you hadn't done that before, and then they betrayed your trust, and then now you're believing, oh, I can't trust other people, so we're really protecting our gifts, so we're living in the zone of protection. And on the outer layer, so the third layer, is the zone of disconnection. And there's nothing wrong with either of these layers. There's no judgment in the zone of disconnection or the zone of protection. It's just noticing. And in the zone of connection, we are further and further from our core, so our truest self. And that's often when we feel disconnected from ourselves, disconnected from others, and we do really feel that sense of loneliness. And so if you're in either of these zones and you're relating to this, just know that there's nothing wrong with you. And then also it's something to get curious about, like, where do you feel disconnected from yourself? Where are you hiding yourself, your true self, from others? So for example, when I was living in the zone of disconnection and feeling really depressed and disheartened about love and not trusting other people, well, when I had been really hurt, I'd been heartbroken. And then also I felt like I was hiding a lot of my needs and my desires while I was dating or in relationship. I would hide the fact that I wanted loyalty and commitment, or I felt embarrassed about being really affectionate, and wanting to share my life with someone. So this would show up in different ways. So instead of telling someone this is what I was looking for, I would play it cool, or I would just pretend not to care, or I would make myself really busy with work and try to make myself look more impressive with all of my accomplishments and all the things that I was doing outside of the relationship, like really just trying to be busy and independent. And there's nothing wrong with independence. It's more so like I was denying myself what I really wanted, which was closeness and connection, but outwardly and also internally, I was doing things that were not honoring the things that I wanted in the long term. So disconnection might actually come from you denying yourself a really important part of what you were longing for, which is why you feel disconnected and lonely. So when we have that awareness, it's no longer what's wrong with me, why do I feel lonely? It's I'm feeling lonely and it's for a good reason, and how can I shift that?
Yeah, so it's more, instead of the judgment, this is what I'm hearing, is that it's more about being curious, being interested as to what's going on or why we're feeling that way. And I sometimes think being our own detective is really helpful. And I think I would add that when we become disconnected, there is that disconnection with our own emotions. And then there is that, what happens is that we become numb because we won't allow ourselves to feel. Yeah. So then we're really in a double bind, because then we don't know how we feel. We don't know what our emotions are. We shut ourselves off, and therefore we're not open to that connection. So yeah, there's some very good things in there. I think you've come up with some great thoughts and ideas and beliefs. I think it is. I think changing our mindset and believing that we are understanding and accepting we're worthy of that. So yeah, we are. But it is that, yeah, I think mindset it goes a long way. You're right.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest mindset shifts that I did have was, well, of course, realizing that it wasn't needy or desperate to want a relationship, but also that sensitivity and emotions are a positive thing. Because I heard this growing up, oh, you're too sensitive, you take things so personally. And so I started to believe that. But with curiosity, as I got older, I realized, where I got really curious about that. Like, is that true? Are emotions a bad thing? Is it bad to have emotions? And I started to get curious about that. And then insights and answers tended to come in, not overnight, but like with time. It was kind of like this intuitive download of like, oh, that feels like me, as opposed to a story that maybe someone else or I grew up hearing that didn't belong to me. But realizing sensitivity gives you deeper insight into yourself and other people's emotions. But when you start to see sensitivity as a gift instead of something to fix, that's when a lot of things change for you. You realize that when you are feeling triggered or angry or scared, like these are all valid. And instead of letting fear take over and talk you out of doing something that takes bravery and courage, and it's also going to help you flex that bravery muscle. So instead of letting fear talk you out of that, you actually do the more courageous thing and you start really building and growing your confidence and your self-worth from doing that, even if it is really scary and nerve-wracking in the beginning. But then you start to treat your emotions as just signals. So instead of feeling hurt and shaming yourself, oh, I'm so sensitive, I take things so personally, what's wrong with me, I need to fix myself in order to make this work with someone, you start to realize, oh, I maybe don't feel the safest in this connection. I can't be my full self here. How can I have a conversation and gain clarity on whether or not this is a good fit for me? So start expressing your needs to the person that you're dating, starting to get really clear on what you're looking for. And then from there, collecting in more information. How do they respond? Is this something that they're also looking for? Do they feel like they can provide what you're looking for? Not in a judgmental way either, of like something's wrong with them, something's wrong with me, it's not going to work. It's more like, I am looking for someone where my emotions can be seen and safe. I want to be able to come to you with hard things, but also the most beautiful things in my life. Do you receive that really well? And if yes, green light, let's continue getting to know each other. But if not, that's okay. We're just not a good fit. And I wish you all the best. So this is how we become discerning, is when we no longer shame ourselves for having emotions or wanting the things that we do want. Because when we start to own that, we can honor ourselves. And it does get a little bit easier to navigate dating when we have that sense of knowing.
And again, you touched on something about me, because I used to be told I was too sensitive. And yet I saw it as a flaw. And then I was trying not to be sensitive. And therefore, I wasn't being true to myself. And I was trying to twist and manipulate myself into being something I wasn't, and not owning the fact, yeah, I'm pretty sensitive. And yeah, I do take things personally, but it's got a positive spin to it as well. So that was quite a big thing for me, and realizing, no, I don't have to twist myself into being something I'm not. So I just wanted to share that, because it was such a personal journey for me. And yeah, when we try and twist ourselves and manipulate ourselves into being something that we're not true to ourselves, and we're not going to attract the right people in our lives.
Yeah. And your true self has nothing on this polished or twisted up or watered down version of yourself. Right. And that also feels really vulnerable to admit, like, oh, I can be my true self. I can feel this sense of warmth and belonging with myself and share that with other people. Again, it's about like inching closer and closer to that core. So you've always had this part of you. It's not something that you have to earn or prove yourself. You've always had this core and essence of who you are. And it's really about like getting closer and closer to it and believing and allowing yourself, right? Because a lot of the things that are protecting us are these beliefs, fears, feeling like we do have to, these pressures, these internal and external pressures of, you have to twist yourself up, you have to edit yourself, you have to be someone you're not in order to make this work. So every time we do that, we in a way are abandoning ourselves. We're not honoring ourselves. So of course we feel disconnected. And it really is a journey about coming back to yourself, and then from there building a life with someone.
That's been so interesting today. Thank you for sharing all of that. And it's been really interesting, and I'm sure people will want to learn more about you and so on. And I'm going to put all your details in the show notes. What's one thing that people can take away with themselves right now? One tip.
That love is possible. I know that there's a lot of people out there that feel really hopeless about love. And I just want to say that I hear you and I see you, and I've been there. Um, but there's also something in you that's likely longing for closeness and for love. And I would say listen to that part of yourself. Don't deny yourself the thing that you really do desire, which is someone to share your life with, someone to be vulnerable with, someone that's also vulnerable with you and opens up to you without you having to pry. And also there is such thing as freedom in relationships. And when you have this deep understanding of who you are and what's important to you, you're going to create a relationship that really complements and enhances your life to the point where there is this freedom in yourself and freedom in the relationship. So that is possible. Like this love and interdependent kind of love is possible, where it's not enmeshment or losing yourself. It really is about enhancing your life and who you are. So that love is possible.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. What's one easy way that people can get in touch with you?
A newsletter. I have a weekly newsletter where I share tips and questions and just deeper that allow you to get deeper insights into who you are, what you're looking for, and how to find your person. So yeah.
How did they find that? How did they find your newsletter?
I will share the link with you. It's there's a link. Yeah. And so
did they just search for Gabby Valdes? Is that the easiest way?
Gabrielle Valdez.
Okay. I will put the details in there for people to find you, but I just wanted one easy way. If someone's just listening, they go, how do I get in touch with this woman? So yeah.
Yeah, GabrielleValdez.com. And then you'll find my newsletter.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Gabrielle. I found it fascinating today. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Wendy.
I hope you found this episode interesting as well as helpful. And you can find out more about my guest by going into the show notes. If you'd like to learn more about me, then go to my website, wendycatewell.co.uk. And there you can also book a call and find out how you can work with me. In the meantime, take care of yourself. Until next time, bye.